This is WFNP 88.7 Rosendale. Welcome to Curiosities of the Cosmos. I'm your host, Allyson Sheneman. Today I've brought on Joe Rizzi to talk about science education and experiments.
Welcome to Curiosities of the Cosmos with Allyson Sheneman. My guest today is Joe Rizzi, a junior majoring in early childhood education at SUNY New Paltz with a concentration in earth science. He is a substitute teacher, a student ambassador, and an admissions assistant. Joe, thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. This is one of my biggest dreams of my life, to be on a podcast.
Well, I'm happy to make that dream come true. I'm very excited for our conversation today. For our listeners, Joe and I are good friends.
Yep.
We've worked on a staff together through admissions, so we go back. And we're both kind of science nerds. We both love teaching. Yeah. I'm very excited to see where this conversation goes. So thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you. This is the best.
Yes,
I'm excited.
It's going to be awesome. So first, I just want to kind of open up the conversation about like what science means to you in your field, both in education and also kind of specializing in earth science, what it like means to you as an educator.
Yeah, I mean, coming to college, I did not think that any of the science classes I'm taking right now I would learn. I've been engrossed in rocks. I take a lot of geology classes here. It's crazy.
Yeah.
They're so much fun though. It's very like in the field, I'm very interactive, and that's what science is to me. I mean, it's very, you're in it. Science is not something you can only learn about on a screen or just know off the top of your head. It's all involved, and you learn through sensory and touching it and seeing it and using your senses, and it's just, that's what I love doing here, and that's what I've been lucky to have to do. Just be able to like have science like all around me in a way. And now going into like the teaching realm, I'm seeing that science is becoming more of a big topic with this year in junior year. I'm in a class that's all around just about science, and you know, being in that and knowing so much from like all my science classes, I kind of feel like, oh, I know this, like I'm excited. I'm ready. So like we're sitting there and just learning about atoms, and I'm like, I got this. But other than that, like science, we've learned techniques and ways and methods and all these other different things that make it more engaging and fun, because, you know, science when I was growing up is completely different than science they have now. Yeah. And I think that's so important, that science changes with you and science changes with time. And it's important to keep up with that and see new things and try new things. And so.
Totally. And I think another probably key part of that you probably experience a lot in working with such young kids, and also then kind of being able to bridge gaps across a lot of different like developmental stages for kids, that the science itself not only changes, but also the methods that make the most sense for each different age group. And what maybe is more appropriate for a certain age group that makes science more approachable to them. Yeah. Do you find any like commonalities across like all kinds of different ages, that like there's something that's kind of universally loved that you do in science, or maybe something that is like very distinctly different in different age groups?
Yeah. Oh my God. Kids love animals. I think, and kids love like just nature in general. I feel like that's just always been a common thing. Over the years, I would say that we've, as humans, just lost our touch with nature in a way, but kids are still wrapped around nature. They love being outside. I mean, their favorite subject is recess at this point. So I've seen this over all different grades that I've taught in and experienced. They just love talking about animals and love talking about the different parts of an animal and different the anatomy of one, and then how one lives in their environment. It's just, that to me is just very heartwarming, like very nice to hear that students still love to hear, like to talk about that stuff. Because you would think like, oh, they just love their phones, you know, that's their only thing they like at this point. But over all the grades, I've been in kindergarten up to 6th grade, and I've seen that they love drawing animals, love talking about their pets or going to the zoo or anything like that. So in that science realm, I think that is something that I always see consistent.
Yeah.
But thinking about different age groups, I feel like the older kids don't as much enjoy, I think they more enjoy the like, I'm trying to think of how I would word it, but they would like I don't know, I think they like the space and they like these alien vibes. They like they like the conspiracy theory science more than they like the regular science.
Right.
I think it has to do with the new generations, really. I think they're so into these crazy video games about aliens. And I always hear, like last week I remember hearing from this student, they're just like, did you hear about the aliens in Miami? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we're learning about we're learning about butterflies. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I've seen that as one consistent thing in like 6th grade. They just love like the more out of this world and not like right here and now. The younger kids are just very like, and they're taught that way too. That's also goes into it.
Totally.
They are taught like, this is our environment right here, right now. Not that they are limited, but it kind of seems that way. I've been in classrooms where it seems like they're only allowed to like think about this certain stuff right now. But as they get older, they realize to get out of the box and just think outside. And I don't know. That is.
You don't often have kindergartners coming up to you with flat Earth conspiracy theories.
No, oh my God, I'm waiting for the day. It's gonna happen.
No, I totally relate to that too. I think something that I have become more aware of lately is the amount that technology is really being inserted into classrooms too, and I think that there's kind of this general buzz that I hear about kind of like at what level is it appropriate to start doing that. It kind of became a requirement through the pandemic, and now that we're moving into where all classrooms are really back in person, there's not really a lot of like limitations as far as I'm aware that are kind of left over from the pandemic, that the amount that technology had infiltrated classrooms has kind of stuck around. So we're going to kind of segue with that into the first segment on the show. So our first segment is called Should We Be More Worried About? Where I ask you, based on like years of public science communication and just kind of like hearing from the people around me, the things that there are that like buzz about, that kind of like concern, that feeling. I bring on a guest who's kind of an expert in a certain field, and I ask them if they should actually be more worried about or less worried about a certain topic. And so my question to you is, should we be more worried about introducing technology into classrooms?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy question right there. My answer obviously is leaning towards no, but at the end of the day, is it inevitable? Right. Are we bound to go to the full extent of just being enwrapped in totally technology? I mean, I can give you an experience I just had.
Totally.
I was substituting the other day, and the kids in, I believe it was a 5th grade classroom, I was co-teaching with their actual teacher, and the other teacher was absent, so I was just hanging in the back, just really observing and seeing how she teaches with their students. And their project is to research a topic, and just in the science world or just in general, and teach it to the class. One of the girls was doing birds, which I thought was really cute because she was teaching me all about these different birds. But this one kid, a boy, he was yelling, he was screaming, he was yelling at her in really disrespectful ways, just saying he wanted to do video games. I want to do video games. Let me do video games. You won't let me do anything except for video games. And I sat there just watching as she's like, no, you're not doing that. And it came to me after I left that like there was no topic he was interested in. There was nothing else he wanted to do. He didn't want to research a new person, learn anything new, see what was questioning him or anything like that. He wanted video games because that's what he is so like known with. That is what he does. That is, I don't know this kid, but after that question and after that experience, I can like assume that like all he likes is video games. And it like, to me, thinks about my future students. Are they also gonna never want to explore and educate themselves in other different ways? I think it's okay to incorporate the two. I think it's important to do that on an appropriate level.
Right.
But it was mind-boggling to see like them just not want to learn new things and transition just as technology. So to answer your question, I mean, technology is, like I was saying, like, do we have the reason, do we have the want, the desire as teachers and as a society to stop technology from coming into the classroom? I don't think we would be to the standards that we are right now. I don't think a lot of students would have the resources and education they have currently without technology, especially after COVID. But it's stopping us from being present. It's stopping us from being here and just being with each other, I feel. And science, in a way, is not individual. It's a group effort. It's a group thing, and it's learning through someone or learning to someone and teaching someone. Not students are just not students. They're, at the end of the day, they are teachers too. Yeah. And as teachers, we want to teach them to be teachers. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you want to, that technology aspect just takes that away. It counteracts that in a way. You'd want them to be able to come together and not be sitting on a laptop doing things and Googling with a manipulative that's online. Like, that's not that's like counterproductive at the end of the day. If you want them to learn about like leaves, take them outside. There's leaves sitting on the ground. Yeah. You don't want to just pull up a YouTube video on how leaves are like changing colors, for example. Yeah. Take them outside. It's fall. Not right now, but it's fall.
Yeah, for someone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
No, totally.
That's just technology is something that I've always had a back and forth relationship with. As I'm getting closer to student teaching and having my own classroom, that idea with technology is just something that weighs me down. It's so numbing at this point because I just keep seeing it constantly. Yeah. And all the teachers like depend on it. It's not even like a codependence. It kind of feels like a symbiotic relationship between these two things. I feel like where teachers are being so desensitized and just like kind of relying on Google and all these other online things, resources to educate. Yeah. And so I don't know if it's a way to just make teaching easier or make their job easier. I mean, I have to learn. I want to see. I want to learn how I can manage both of them at the same time.
Yeah, totally. Because there definitely is. There are ways that it can really affect you positively as a teacher, also. And I think that this is maybe, to me, the hardest should we be more worried about question that I've had on this season, because I really do feel there is no yes or no. The whole situation is this gray area, and there really isn't like a recommendation that you can just give flat out. Because on one hand, sure, it like makes more sense to get them where they can really be present in the moment and they can really interact with and engage with science at such a like physical and personal level, and also in collaboration with their peers. Yes. But also that the sheer amount of educational opportunities that technology provides students that wouldn't otherwise have them. There are ways to engage with museums now around the globe that you can take virtual tours, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, absolutely.
It's hard to say like, yeah, we should just cut off technology. You can't just cut off all technology. That's not the way the world works, right? And I think by taking all technology out of a classroom, you're ill-preparing students for what their future is going to be, because digital literacy is essential in our society moving forward for them, and becoming more required every day. But at the same time, to force them almost to make like staying on technology the only option and a kind of like consistent part of their education experience, that it might subtract then from the ways they could be physically engaging with the world. I took a nature walk the other day.
Oh my God.
I went on a walk with a couple of the professors through the honors program at New Paltz, and it was such an incredible experience. It's been a long time since I've just like been outside and just like sat with my thoughts in a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the walk was supposed to be, it was half led by a professor from the biology department and half from the English department. And so we were meant to write haikus while we were like interpreting trees and stuff like that. And we learned, like, first of all, haikus are not 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables.
What?
They're just meant to be, like, the traditional form of a haiku is just meant to be like, he said it's like it's meant to embody brevity. It's meant to be like a connection with nature, and you should be able to kind of say it in one breath. Like, that's kind of the point. It's like a really short poem, but it doesn't have to be 575. And it made it so fun to like engage with like trying to take these big thoughts and feelings about the natural world and like distill them down into these smaller words. And one that he said that really resonated with me that you just kind of were bringing up, I promise this actually ties into what we were saying. You said the best way to teach them about leaves is to take them outside and there's leaves on the ground. That there's a poem that says, I'm going to butcher it too.
You got this.
It's like to learn from the tree, study the tree. Or like if you want to learn about trees, study trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's just like, it really is that simple. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to learn about a tree, the best thing you can do is go and sit with it for a second.
Go hug a tree.
Yeah. And we walked around and we touched all these different evergreen trees that are on campus, and you learn which ones are like more like spiky versus which ones, like fir trees, are really like gentle to touch because they're not so like rigid.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that before, and I've taken classes about trees. I could tell you everything about how tree leaves work and the structures and the xylem and the phloem and their vascular tissue. Like, I could tell you so much about trees. And I had no clue that fir trees were like softer to touch.
Wow.
And yet that to me feels like I feel as though I understand fir trees much more intimately now than what I did when I just learned about them in a book.
And
like,
so, you're learning through nature. No one's sitting you down right there and being like, this is this on like a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
You're physically learning by just doing.
And that's still science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we're having very similar like experiences. I this is my last spring semester here, so I told myself, we just need to be out in nature. We're around a mountain. I haven't even gone up there, and that's crazy to me.
Okay,
crazy.
Well, first of all, big recommendation. I took one day off in like a weekend 2 semesters ago, and just went from the campus. I started at like 8 a.m. I went from the campus and I walked to the top of the mountain and then back to the bottom. And it took me all day because I wasn't trying to like rush. Like, my whole point was to like do what I could, enjoy it, like just be outside. And like my only goal was to just make it up there. And I could see it the whole time. I was like, I'm going to be up there. And then you get up there and you just like have lunch. It was awesome. And I could not recommend it more highly. And I think the thing that drove me to do that is that where I'm from, there really aren't mountains. I'm from like the lower part of Michigan. It's pretty flat. And so being here, I was like, I really need to appreciate this while I have it, because I know that I won't maybe forever be near mountains, but definitely recommend. It's possible, and there's trails leading up the whole way.
Oh my god. Yeah, I've been doing some trails lately. That has been great. Like what you were saying with like being in nature and doing these trails. I've never done them until this semester, and I don't know why it's taken me so long, but it's just I'm learning through experience, and I'm soaking in what's left of college and what's around me. I mean, I live 5 minutes from a beach on Long Island.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have this experience probably for a long time, so I'm taking it in, and that's science to me. That's nature to me.
Totally.
Just being there and doing it when you can.
No, I totally agree and appreciate that perspective. We're actually going to take our first short break here, so stay tuned and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to WFNP 88.7 The Edge, Rosendale. This is Continuing with Curiosities of the Cosmos. I'm your host, Allyson Sheneman, and I'm joined by Joe Rizzi, a junior and student of early childhood education in earth science at SUNY New Paltz.
Hi.
Welcome back, everyone. We just had a wonderful conversation about introducing technology to classrooms and engaging with science and nature on a really personal level. We're going to continue now with more on science in early childhood. So as I understand it, you have some science experiments kind of planned that we can talk about that maybe are accessible for people to be able to do at home. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, right now I'm in field work, so that has really opened me up to different possibilities with science, and it's going through Pinterest or just Googling it or trying something and watching it fail and trying it again. Those are all ways to help me as a teacher for the future and take in what works, what doesn't work. One thing I really love, and this is something you can do at home or in the classroom with your students, and I remember I did it in 5th grade, and I still to this day loved it. Just journaling, journaling what you're looking at. So lately I've been looking at the clouds a lot. I had a homework assignment that was all about observing clouds.
That's
and
awesome.
It wasn't until this semester that I started looking up.
Yeah.
Genuinely. I think it is something that no one does, because we're all looking down here on our phones.
Yeah.
But I think if you want to learn about the clouds, you can teach your student at home or or online, Googling or YouTube, again, resources, or in classroom, and jotting down what you see on the clouds. Do you see the sun? Where is the sun? What kind of clouds do you see? Do you see big puffy ones? Do you see flat ones? That is learning. That is science. It's just as easy as that. There doesn't need to be, add water to this and measure it up to this height. No, it could just be through observation. And that's the same thing if you want to do something at night. We had to do a cloud journal, but I also had to do a moon journal. So I had to look at the phases of the moon, and I love that one. That is the best.
That's awesome.
Just be able to look and just like, and kids are amazed by it. They go outside and they're like, wait, what? It was just a crescent moon. What are you talking about? Now it's like something else. They like that. They like drawing it. They like observing what stars they see in the sky. Like all those things are so interactive, and you can't touch the stars, but you can look at them and you can jot down what you see. And that to me is a great at home and a great in class one.
Yeah. And also, like, to me, one of the first things that I think of is like anybody can do it. And you can do it from anywhere at any time. Yeah. Like
any age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parents love it.
I was just about to say, I
it.
might go do it.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. And also noting like with clouds, like what type of weather do you see with like what types of clouds? And like I was just walking over here and it's a bright sunny day and there's one dark cloud and like little raindrops falling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is
weather?
Like, yeah, it's like crazy how those two things can coexist. And I was thinking, like, in preparation for coming on the show, like what a 5-year-old looking at that might realize about the world. Like, oh, when it rains out, it doesn't have to be a dark gray stormy day. It can be bright and sunny out and just one cloud is kind of darker.
Yeah.
And noting like the fact that the clouds are different colors and that those different colors mean different things about the weather. And there's so many things that opens up, and that's so awesome. And like with the stars, I'm thinking like, obviously you're getting the moon phases, but you're also getting like what hours of the night can you see the moon? Because if you go out the same hour every night, there will be nights where you don't see the moon, because the moon will be at its brightest and at certain parts of the sky at different times during the day. Right. And so there are certain phases that the moon might be in where it's out during the day. You've probably seen the moon while the sun is out. And there are phases where it's a new moon, and so you can't really see it at all because it's just like dark. And the idea that you start to get a sense of where those different phases might be, what times you see them, what stars they tend to be near, and noticing that the stars change with the season too, that you're not getting the same stars no matter when the phase is the same or when it's different. Those are like such cool like connections to make. And it's free in your backyard.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless when you just look up. Like it's crazy the amount of science that is just above us.
That's awesome.
I don't think it's appreciated enough, and I don't think it's taught about enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm going to implement that kind of stuff. I think it's I don't consider that homework. I hope the kids don't either, but it's kind of just
They might.
Yeah, they probably will. But just going outside like once a day and just looking up, just exploring through your eyes and just looking and seeing what you see.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have another one.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a very artsy person myself.
Yeah.
I love the arts, and especially with STEAM, which you know about STEAM, right?
Well, maybe our audience doesn't.
The audience. Hi. So STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. Math? Is it math?
Yeah.
It's math, right?
Science,
oh my God.
Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math.
I'm a great educator. Don't think I don't know my
Your
acronyms.
kids aren't going to ask you about STEAM. They're going to ask you about the clouds.
Oh, yeah. But I'm a very artsy person, and I think art is incorporated into science at all times. And sensory play is the best and is needed in times like this when students that went through COVID were taken away from that ability to just be hands-on. And
totally.
So my next experiment that I always love, and it's just the easiest thing, is slime, oobleck. All you need is glue. All you need is like baking soda. You need contact solution. It's the easiest little things you can get from the grocery store, and just put them together. Slime is very just hands-on, just playing with it. That kids aren't, you might think as a parent, oh, they're just making a mess in my house. In that way, they are learning what mixes together to make this weird concoction. How much of this do I need to get this? And they could do different trials. They could do experiments on, if I add more glue, will I have a bigger amount of slime or a smaller amount of slime? So in that way, it is still engaging and interactive, and they're questioning and solving, but it's also fun. Like, they're just having fun. Like, 'cause at the end of the day, science is fun, and it should be fun. It should be taught to be fun. It should be taught to be interactive and not just learn.
Yeah.
And then you can add things to slime. Like, you can add like those little like sensory, I don't even know what they're called, like buttons. I don't know. They have like different things. These days they have everything that you could just put it to slime.
I know. I almost think of them like sprinkles.
Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds nice. Just sprinkles and slime. Not to eat, but you know.
No.
But oobleck's a good one. We just did that in class the other day. That's a great, just learning about density and phase changes. We learned about how I'm picking at it right now. Why does it feel like a solid, but when I grab it at the top, it just liquid.
Yeah.
It's just all liquid.
Yeah.
And that I'm going into this and I still don't understand it. It's crazy. It's mind-boggling. And these students are going to think the same thing, and that's good. Yeah. Like, let them question. They might not solve the answer right there and then, but let them question. And that is a great experiment that just lets them explore and just question.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like something else that I think of that I hope to be very intentional about in my interactions with children, both in like planetarium shows and any other avenue, is just like never shutting down a question. Like, it doesn't always have to be, and I love the examples you're bringing for experiments, because they don't always have to be this like crazy structured, like you have to do this and then this and then this, and therefore your experiment was successful. It's like they're kids. Like, it's meant to just kind of be like them like playing with stuff and just asking questions, and you don't have to know the answers, and they don't have to know the answers, for it to still be like intentional, and for it to still be like a fulfilling, engaging experience for them, where they're still learning something without necessarily getting the answers to their questions. Because you don't have to be able to say to them, oobleck is a non-Newtonian fluid, and therefore it goes from states of solid when it's under force versus when you're removing the force, it becomes liquid. It's like, you don't have to know any of that.
Okay, just learned something new right now.
Exactly. And you didn't have to know that to still be able to describe to me the process that it is. Yeah. That when you are trying to scrape at it, it stays solid. But when you just let it sit there, it doesn't. And you don't have to know the words behind the reasons that this thing happens and this thing doesn't. The word that somebody just assigned to this process. You don't have to know that to engage with the process. Like, you can still fully, fundamentally understand how oobleck works. How like, you can predict. I could say to you, well, if I punched it, do you think it would be hard, or would it be a liquid? And you could probably come up with what the answer to that would be without knowing necessarily the words and terminology to it. And I think that's such a more like enriching experience for kids to have, as opposed to like being like, here's a picture of oobleck and it does this thing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's way more science to really engage with it. That's awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, you are so good at wording things. Wow, I am amazed by that. I did not know that about oobleck also.
And you don't have to.
Yeah. I going back with that, I think it's so important to like, just teachers are not supposed to know everything at the end of the day. I don't know everything. I'm not going to be able to learn everything.
Totally.
Teaching is a learning experience for both me and the students. And so maybe a student knows that. And I would be amazed if a student knew that. And it would be amazing for them to teach us.
Totally.
And so I'm in that way, and these things that I'm talking about, I might just assign them and expect them to come back and teach me as well.
Yeah.
And so that's, again, what science is, just learning back and forth. You're not, I'm the teacher, they're the students, but that doesn't mean like I know everything and they don't.
Yeah.
They're supposed to come back and teach me what they have learned in a way.
Yeah.
And teach others.
And there's no way for any one individual to know everything anyway. Kind of the whole point of science being collaborative the way that it is for people to teach each other.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be, here's the expert on science, now everybody else listen to them.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's actually really dangerous when science is like that.
Right.
And so to teach kids that like experiments in science is meant to be recreated. It's meant to be tested by you. And it's meant to pass your tests. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it doesn't, that's where we start asking questions. That's where we start trying to figure out why it's not passing the test.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you might make slime and oobleck both at the same time, and one of them is going to react very differently than the other. And so you start to ask, well, what are the things that is making it act that way? And hopefully science should have an explanation as to why those things act differently. And if they don't, that's for you to figure out, right?
Yeah.
And that's what research is. Like, all of a sudden, you've got like little researchers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like incredible like science training there, these different skills that they...
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like as an elementary teacher that I'm going to be, I'm laying the foundation for just their science world. I want to push my students to just think outside the box and question themselves, agree, disagree with your friends. That's a big part. I remember them always pushing that in the English portion, just like having like Socratic seminars and just sitting around and being like,
Yes.
Who agrees? Who disagrees? Why? But like, put that into science as well. Students need to be able to understand, this is what I think and I don't agree with you, or this is what I think but I understand what you're saying and you tell me what you're thinking and maybe we can come to some agreement together and come up with a hypothesis together. And I don't think that's touched on upon as much as I thought that it should be.
Yeah.
I think students need to be able to argue with each other in a way that's respectful for everyone. And I think that needs to be taught, because that will help them become better researchers, better scientists, understanding a bias and understanding different sides of an argument. And that will help them in their science journey.
Absolutely. And it's not just for kids who want to be scientists. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's something in my experience with tutoring and stuff that I used to get asked a lot. Is like, well, I'm not going to be a mathematician. I'm not going to be a scientist. So why do I have to do algebra? And why do I have to do these experiments? Why would I have to engage in science in that way? And I think it's both to teach you to think in a different way. It teaches you different thinking skills and processes. But it's also for, like what you were saying, to be able to get you to argue respectfully, and to be able to get you to understand bias and to look for bias, to be able to look at a research paper and say, oh, well, this one says that it's claiming that it was funded by so-and-so. Maybe I should think more critically about the results that they came up with, see if I could recreate that. And I think that being able to look at your bias, to be able to look at ways to argue respectfully, goes so far beyond science. Science classes and math classes, in my understanding, aren't meant to just teach you science and math. They're meant to teach you, especially at an elementary level, they're meant to teach you how to be good people. Yeah, 100%. They're meant to teach you how to engage with your peers in a respectful way, how to engage with ideas and creativity in a way that is that works like for the greater good, I
Yeah.
guess, to be able to make a mess and be okay with that, and also to learn how to clean it up and like what all of those different things look like. It's not meant to just teach somebody how to be a researcher, though ideally we're preparing kids for being able to have that at least as an option, that they're if they are interested, that they can choose that and they have the skills to choose that, but that it's not like we're just trying to prepare them for the workforce. We're trying to prepare them to be good people.
Humans. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, yeah, I think that same way every day. If I go into a school and when I become my own teacher, I think to myself, I rather them learn to be respectful and human and grow through whatever I've done and activities and whatever experiences they've had in this class with each other, more than I rather them learn facts about
Totally.
the moon or anything like that.
Because they can Google.
They can Google the technology. But yeah, that is so much more like important and critical to me. Self-care, brain breaks. Oh my God. Let me tell you about brain breaks for a minute.
Yes, please do. Like
It's
the sound of this.
It's my new obsession because I don't think it's just for students. I think it's for like us, like anyone. Brain breaks, if anyone doesn't know, are basically just seconds or minutes or hours, if you feel like it, where you could just be by yourself and do something that turns your brain off, whatever that might be. If it's reading, you're just reading and not using your brain, or it's just drawing. Drawing is a really good one. I love doing that, like therapeutic, like coloring books or anything like that.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Or if it's listening to music, if that's something like you like, I would definitely encourage brain breaks at least 2 to 3 times a day. Come on, people.
Oh, yeah.
Even I love laying in a hammock. That's considered a brain break to me. I think it's so important for students to have these in the classroom where they're just not thinking for a second. It's okay to not think all the time. They are thinking literally 5 days a week at that, like Monday through Friday in a school for 7 hours, just learning, and that can be so detrimental. And that's another reason why a lot of students are so taken out of their learning experience. They don't want to learn. They're so bored. They're so tired. That kid that I was talking about before substituting, he wasn't that. It might not be that he just wants to do video games and he's set on it. It might have just been he just doesn't want to do anything else. He's so bored. He's so tired of learning, and he just needs a second to be by himself and think, or just do something that he himself likes.
Totally.
And I think teachers need to understand that it's okay to have a 5-minute break and just sit there or put your heads down or play a game that's just not critically thinking wise. Brain breaks, everyone.
That's awesome. I think too, like when you say that kids get bored of learning, like to me that is one of, if not the like saddest part about the way that education is set up, at least in this country, that I feel like you walk into a kindergarten classroom and they've got 1,000 questions and they're going 1,000,000 miles an hour and they're so excited to engage with the world. And by the time you reach high school and middle school, it's gone. That spark is gone. And like there must be people out there, I'm sure, who are trying to figure out how we can keep that like spark that they have, because we just like beat it out of them. And I feel like part of what I'm hearing too, and I hear you talk about this kid who was so dead set on studying video games, is that like maybe he's so bored with the way that his education has been that the only thing he finds engaging is something that is designed to be extremely stimulating. Video games are meant to hook you in and keep you hooked. They want you to keep playing them. And so maybe that's the only thing that he feels is stimulating enough that he can engage with it, because he's just so bored with everything else. And it's such a pity to me. Like one of the greatest injustices that I think we do to young kids is that we don't make science and learning and English and every field stimulating enough that it's good for them. That is all that they need. And they can seek other sensory inputs and other like stimulating activities and stuff. And that's still totally okay. And they can try to figure out their passion, search for the thing that they find the most interesting. But the idea that a kid can go into a classroom and shut their brain off for the entire class and just kind of zone out because it's just like not doing it for them. I think it's just so devastating to me. And I'm sure you've probably seen that in your classroom experiences.
100%. Oh my God. Wow. So many kids these days are just like zombies. Like they just sit there and
That's a great way of putting it.
They're just mindfulness zombies. They just want to be there, get through the day, go home, and do whatever they like.
Yeah.
A lot of things I think also incorporate social issues. I think these kids are not in classrooms that they are making friends. They are forced to just sit there, do their work individual, hand it in. And I've seen that in kindergarten too, which is really suppressing because that's when they're supposed to learn and grow with each other and not apart. I've seen them just sit at a computer and do like a testing system at kindergarten, 5 years old, and just sit there and individually put their headphones on and do their work.
That's devastating.
For 40 minutes at least. Yeah, it's, and in my head I'm like, you could be doing this with a partner, with a group, with the teacher, and it cannot be involved with the laptop. But you choose to do this. And it's not even like the teacher does this, it's the education system that chooses to do this. Yeah. And these little itty bitty steps that might be not the biggest problem. The teacher might not see it as a problem, or the parent or the student. Yeah. It's adding to the whole system that's not in the right to make our students engaged and learn the right way. So
yeah, I think it's a great point too to make sure that I don't even want to say like blame, because I don't know that blame is productive, but I just think to redirect some of the blame at least, if parents especially, and even future educators, the kids themselves, people who are looking for who to blame for this, that it's not their teachers. I mean, you can get bad teachers and you can get good teachers, and there's a whole array of variety in the quality of a teacher and what makes a good quality teacher. But I think it's so much deeper than that, because any individual teacher can't just decide, oh, these requirements from my district, from the United States, I'm just not going to do those because I don't think they're good for my kids. You can't just make that decision as a teacher. There's certain things you have to do. I mean, I don't know personally, but I would assume that teacher was probably mandated to give them this test that they have to take individually. Yeah. And so you can't say, oh, like this teacher's a bad teacher, or I don't like the way that this teacher teaches. It's like, I mean, most of those things are, especially the things that you would complain about, like a kid like a 5-year-old having to sit at a computer and take a test for an hour. Like that kind of thing is probably so far above what any individual teacher gets to and
the parents are the first person they want to blame are us. They want to be like, you're the responsible for this. You're the reason why my child doesn't communicate and has behavior issues at home. And it's, I think, going in this age of students and of life, I think I have to prepare myself, and other teachers alike have to prepare ourselves to work with parents in a way that teaches them how to also be teachers, because I think there's a lack of responsibility sometimes on both ends, but specifically parents. They think that, well, that's your job, go teach them. And I think as a parent, I can't speak because I'm also not a parent, but as a parent, I think you have a responsibility to be there for them, to teach them new things and teach them through like engaged in activities outside. If you just take them outside and do things with them, they might do it in school, but you're doing it at home. And students like to see that their family's involved, and that they can go back to school and be like, hey, I learned this from my mom. I think that part on parents, I'm not coming for all parents, don't worry. But I think that issue that parents have with teachers is so counterproductive. I think we need to work better together. Totally. Because at the end of the day, it's not affecting me as a teacher, it's not affecting them as a parent, it's affecting the student right here, right now. Yeah. And that is so sad. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think like for sure there also just needs to be better resources available for students whose parents can't do that. Yeah. Because it's a very real situation in our country that there are students whose parents work so much
in order to just make a living wage.
Right.
That they just don't have enough hours in the day to take their kids out and cloud watch.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And so it's just, yeah. I mean, typically I feel those parents are also not the ones complaining as much because they tend to be like, thank you for trying your best.
No, 100%.
At least in my experience of that and what I've heard. But I also feel like our ideal situation is that parents are working to support what the teacher is doing, and teachers are doing their job to support what the parent is doing, and the child in both of those ways is being supported. And it's sad that in a world where both of those don't necessarily have to happen, that there's not really the resources to make sure that the kid is supported regardless.
I completely understand. I mean, I did fieldwork last semester in Poughkeepsie, which is one of the more on the side where there's a lot of intellectual issues and academic issues for all the students, especially in the reading category. And she would always tell me that, in a way, she was very communicative with those students that came from poor houses and didn't have parents, like you were saying, that could sit down and just walk with them outside. A lot of them had babysitters that watched them day and night. And that's nothing me as a teacher and my fieldwork instructor could do. Yeah. We couldn't fix that.
And there's not much that the parent can do really either. Yeah, it's a really sad
reality.
Yeah, reality. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, for all the teachers listening, it's a reality we have to face, and you have to be prepared to help every student, no matter what kind of environment they are at, in home or in school. And at the end of the day, you are helping one student at a time. And at the end of the day, you're learning, they're teaching you new things, and all you could do is go home thinking, oh my God, I did my job. I
the best you can, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of a sad note to transition into our next segment on. But I think it's real, and I'm glad we still had the conversation. But we are at our time check for our next segment. So we're going to transition into maybe something a little more cheerful.
I'm excited.
This is what you've been waiting for.
Oh my God, no. Tell me what it is.
So this is our Curiosity Corner. So this is where I tell you 3 fun facts, and you get to rate them on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means it's not fun, you've already heard it, lame, right? And 10 is, that's incredible, I'll think about it every day for the rest of my life, whether that's a good or a bad thing.
Okay. I'm scared, but I'm so excited.
Okay, so I have hand selected these for you. I'm very excited for your reactions.
Oh my God, I feel so special.
All right. This one, I had no idea the science behind this one, and it's been blowing my mind for the last couple of days, so I hope this one sits with you the same way. A caterpillar's muscles dissolve and then reassemble during metamorphosis.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I know. It's so when they make their little cocoons and stuff, they kind of become this, I read somewhere while I was preparing this segment, they become like a cellular soup of all of the things that they were when they were a caterpillar. And there's certain discs, I think they're called spatial discs, that dictate how they are reassembled, but they just kind of dissolve into this goo and then build a butterfly out of that.
I don't know how to answer that. That is, if I had to rate that's definitely a 10 right there, because I want to raise my own butterflies, and I want to have little caterpillars in my room. I'm so that teacher. And I'm telling them that. I hope that doesn't scare any of them.
Well, I tend to try to run my fun facts by people before I bring them on the show to see, just to make sure that they're things that maybe the average person doesn't know. And so when it's a fun fact that I stumble upon that I then make sure is right and everything that I don't know, I trust that if I don't know it, then I trust that especially if it's a science fun fact, that it's at least cool.
That is crazy cool.
Yeah.
I did not.
I ran it by somebody and they were like, yeah, I learned that in 3rd grade.
I just watched Alice in Wonderland the other day for one of the first times in my life. And remember that little caterpillar?
Yes.
He just turn into a butterfly. I did not think that he's dissolving into some sort of soup before my eyes. But okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, somebody that I know learned it when they were in 3rd grade and they turned out fine.
Wow. I love that.
So you can teach your kids.
Yeah. I want them to go home and be like, Mom, guess what? Caterpillars, they turned to soup.
Yeah. So
That's
good
a
to start
10.
out with a 10.
That
I
was
feel
a
like
good one.
We're just starting off strong. All right. If all the DNA in your body was put end to end, it would reach to the sun and back over 600 times.
No, you can't be telling me
It's
this.
92 million miles.
What?
Yeah. But it's all curled up inside you instead.
So what would it look like? No, now I'm going to start questioning the entire world. If we were to attach, you're saying take my DNA and just string it out.
Yes. Yeah, like instead of the way that it is right now, it's like really compact and clumped up all together or in little strands and bits all throughout your body. That it's so like compact and clumped together. But if you were able to put it end to end and just like stretch it out instead, that it could reach to the sun and back over 600 times.
Second question.
Yeah.
Who is finding this out?
Well, really what it is that we can figure out roughly the size of the human genome,
Okay.
how much DNA we have. And once we figure out how much DNA we have and how much space that DNA would take up, right? Like we can see DNA when we like run it through different processes, right? To like amplify it and stuff like that. So when we figure out how much DNA we have, how much space that DNA takes up, and how much it takes up when it's unraveled, all we have to do then is know the size of the distance from the Earth to the sun, which we super know.
Yeah.
And how many times those two distances can overlap.
Wow.
Yeah, it's something like, I want to say it's like 100 trillion base pairs or something like that. And it's like, I'm just kind of throwing out numbers. I saw this, I planned this episode a couple days ago, so I'm just throwing out roughly what I remember. And there's like a certain amount of space that each of those takes up. And then you multiply those together and you divide it by 92 million miles.
This is so sciencey.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I would have to give that. I'm going to give her an 8.
Okay.
You know, because that is still very shocking to me. But I'm not going to remember that song. I'm just like, I cannot. That is so crazy to think. Like, think about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me this.
No, I feel like that one really reminds me of just how like complex people are.
Yeah. Wow.
Like how much it really takes to make us.
Yeah. How to make a human. Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. I like that one a lot. Not as good as the caterpillar one. The soup, that is a good one.
The caterpillar one's tough to beat.
Caterpillar soup.
All right. This next one is going to take a little bit of explanation, but I'm really excited about it.
Okay, I'm ready.
So we can detect the first instant that the universe became transparent.
What?
Okay. So again, it's going to require a little bit of explanation.
We were transparent. The world. Wait.
Okay.
Explain again.
I got you.
I'm ready.
So transparent in that the universe currently is what we would consider transparent, as in light can travel freely through it, right?
Yes.
So light travels from the sun to the Earth. It travels from distant stars to the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It can pass through space, right? And there was a period in time where the universe was so dense and hot that it could not do that.
Mm.
So this exact time period is called the Epoch of Recombination, which is just like a cool little title for it.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's
right?
the name of my new book.
It's a cool like band name too.
Okay.
Yeah. So this occurred approximately 380,000 years after the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
It's this very precise moment in time. So before that, after the Big Bang, but up until this moment, the universe itself was just this like hot, dense plasma.
Right.
And so there were all these different particles, like your protons and your electrons, and they were all interacting with and scattering light. So anytime a photon tried to move, it would just get scattered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Thomson scattering. It's just a fancy title for the process that is, right? So the universe was small enough and dense enough and hot enough and all these other things that the light couldn't really like escape or like travel freely around space, because it would just get scattered by this like mess of electrons and protons, right? And so as the universe expanded and cooled down, there was a point where neutral hydrogen atoms could be made. Now, hydrogen atom is just an electron and a proton. And so the universe got cool enough, and there was enough space, that we could start to form basic atoms. And so when the electrons and the protons started to come together to form pairs and become atoms, there was suddenly enough space, and it was cool enough for your photons to move around freely. So light could start to move around because the like soup of electrons and protons had started to become kind of more like clumpy, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so photons could then fill that like emptiness, right?
Okay.
It's cool.
This is blowing my mind. So
awesome.
Much information is coming at me, and I'm loving it.
It's so cool, right? It's like hard to even imagine.
Yeah, it's very like...
This is like baby universe
crazy,
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in adult universe stuff.
Yeah,
So as the electrons and the protons started to form atoms, we call that recombination. So that's the reason for the title. And those photons could start to be able to move more freely. And so as the universe has continued to expand and cool, as those photons start to try to reach us, they become redshifted. So Doppler shift is a kind of complicated process that I super do not have the time to explain, but you can just trust me on this one. That if you think about an electromagnetic spectrum, which is where you see like the wave and it becomes more compact in some places and bigger on others, and it's like gamma rays and radio waves and X-rays and all of that stuff.
Right.
And there's normally a little sliver carved out for visible light. Mm-hmm. So this light has been redshifted, which just means that it's cooled down so much, and a little bit because it's also traveling really far. It's been kind of moved along the electromagnetic spectrum. It's kind of getting like stretched out almost. So it's no longer just visible to us. So when you look up at the night sky, you don't just see light everywhere from all directions. So we can't just see it with our eyes, but a few decades ago, radio astronomers were taking their data, and they had this noise in the background of their data that they couldn't get rid of. And they were trying to explain it away with different like noise signals that the Earth might have, and they couldn't find anything that could explain it. And they later then realized that they had actually proven something that had been predicted by theory and physics to be true, and that is that this background radiation of the whole universe exists, and that it's shifted into microwave. So we call it the cosmic microwave background radiation. And it's just this image of the first moment that light could travel freely in the universe. Yeah. Wow.
The definition of microwave has really changed for me. I used to just heat up food in it. Now it has to do with the cosmos. This is crazy.
Yeah.
That
pretty awesome.
That is definitely up there. You know what? I gave an 8. I gave a 10. I'm gonna go 9 for that one. These were good. These were really good. Wow.
I thought you would like them.
I loved them. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know. I think about that all the time.
I know. Oh my god. I want to just like do a whole segment of fun facts. Like more of this. More.
Well, if you want more fun facts, you can listen to other episodes. There's 3 fun facts in every episode. Oh yeah. A little plug to the rest of the show. And with that being said, we're actually at time to cut to our last segment. So thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to WFNP 88.7 The Edge Rosendale. This is continuing with Curiosities of the Cosmos. I'm your host, Allyson Sheneman, and I'm joined by Joe Rizzi, a junior and student of early childhood education and earth science at SUNY New Paltz. So for our last few minutes, and to end every episode, I ask the guests to bring in their favorite question that they've ever been asked. So Joe, what is your favorite question?
When you told me to get this question, I I did not know what to think. My brain went everywhere. I was like, whoa. But I thought about it for a second. I sat down and just thought, like, what does this mean to me? Like, what question have I been asked as a student, as an adult, as a teacher? Like, what question was important? And I brought to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I
that's
feel
so
like,
good.
yeah, it's a question you don't hear not only from students and kids, but you hear it from adults. They always ask and they always question. But specifically talking about when students, I love when students come up to me and be like, what do you want to do when you get older? What do you want to be when you grow up? It's just so adorable to see that they want to know, and they want to tell you, they want to ask you, but also, what do you say? Like at that age, when I was in 5th grade, did I know I was going to be a teacher? Was I like made to be a teacher? Was my environment something that taught me how to be a teacher? So I think that question is so broad. You're as a child, I remember being like, I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to be a celebrity. You're going to see my name in the lights. I'm going to be up there. And now I'm going for teaching, which is basically I'm the celebrity of the school, let me tell you.
Yes. Yes, you are.
I know. So like, what shifts that idea? You're so out of this box, and then you go and you're like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a rock star. I want to be on billboards around Times Square. And then you go to that small major or a small job. Why do we put ourselves in that box? Why did little Joe just decide, like, why can't I be a celebrity? Like, what shifted that? So when I get asked that question, I immediately tell them I want to be a teacher. I want to be able to work with kids like you. And they say, well, not to plug myself, but they're like, oh my God, you'd be a great teacher. I'm like, thanks for boosting my ego. You're the best. But I always ask them as well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And no one should ever diminish what they say. I've heard the craziest things. I heard I want to be a unicorn.
That's awesome.
Be a unicorn.
Yeah, me too.
Do it. Do it. I've heard, like, I want to be a lifeguard. I want to be a vet. Like, and these are kids going to like 5 years old. Like, they have a crazy imagination, and who are we to stop them from thinking that they want to do something? If they want to do it at that age, it might shift through their experience and through their lives, but we can't stop them. I was lucky enough that my family was supportive for me to be a teacher. It's not that for everyone, and whatever major or whatever job career they go into.
Sure.
But I was lucky enough that my parents didn't, or myself, allow me to stop myself from what I love and what I wanted to do when I get older. And that in itself made me more passionate for what I want to do. And I didn't feel that this is going to be a burden, that my life is going to not feel fulfilled through that. And so I feel like it's just so important to let kids say whatever they want to that question. Sure. It's just, what did you want to be when you grew up? Do you remember?
I used to say I was such a little kid, I was such a freak. I was like, I remember the first answer I ever had to that question when I was 5 years old or something. I used to always say I want to be a paleontologist.
Oh my God.
I know.
You're the only kid to say that. I love
and it's just because I saw cool movies about dinosaurs and I loved dinosaurs. I was one of those kids. Okay. And I think all dinosaur kids should grow up to be STEM people in some capacity, whether that's just keeping a cloud notebook or doing it for your profession. If you love dinosaurs as a kid, find that again. Find that spark in you.
Don't lose it.
Because that I loved dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. And so I learned the word for what it meant to study dinosaurs, and I was like, that's what I'm going to be.
Yeah. You know what? I'm thinking back on my experiences too, and I remember I was really into art growing up. My whole life was around art. I was in art since first grade. I went to this small little place that my cousin ran. It was a little art store, and I would just paint away and I've been engulfed in that ever since. And the sad reality is that I've lost it, and that I haven't been able to get back into it, and it's not the same without it. I remember for a long time when I wanted to go to school, I always thought I would work as an illustrator, I would work as someone who just draws for a living. And then I started transitioning into more like, I guess, reality in a way. I feel like, I guess I was so, through like social experiences and just talking with my friends, and I've learned that like they would kind of tell me it was not like gonna happen, which was really sad. And like I would hear it from like my family sometimes, like you would love, yes, do it, but also it seemed very hesitant, and it seemed very less supported in a way. And like I wonder now, I'm like starting to think about myself, but I wonder personally, would I be doing that right now? Would I be a cartoonist or something in the art world? Like, was this supposed to happen? And was it because of my nature and my nurture? Was it supposed to happen because of my friends telling me, oh, that's cool, but like not really being that supportive? I don't know. And that's the same thing for students. Like if you are surrounding yourself by people that are negative and telling you, that's kind of cool, and you're kind of diminishing what they want in life, are we doing our job as friends, as people? Are we doing our job as supporters? We're supposed to be creating our support group. And is that someone that, sorry, I know this has gotten so off topic right now, but
I love this.
It's just very crucial in this day and age to have to surround yourself with people that are going to support you in that way. And that question answers that. When you want to be when you grow up, but do you have people that will support you for what you will do when you grow up? Yeah. So.
Yeah, and to not judge you based on your answer. Yeah. Right? And I think, like, I don't remember who said this, but I remember hearing once where it was like, if dreams didn't change, we'd have a lot more cowboys and princesses and astronauts and stuff. And I think that's so real and valid. And I think it's a totally normal experience to kind of test out what it is that you think you want to do, figure out how realistic it is. Because unfortunately, cowboy isn't a really well-paying job. And so figure out, like, what is realistic in that, like, is there anybody in the world that does that as their job? And if there is, find a way to do it, right? And it's like, sure, you might not be able to be a cowboy, but if that's the thing you want to do, I'm sure there's like towns in the west of the US that are like set up to be like old-fashioned like towns and like tourist traps, really. And you might be an actor more than you are a cowboy, but you could do that. If that's really the thing you want to do with your life, you can. And so when people get those answers for kids, I think it's really important to do like what you said, and just whatever the answer is, to encourage them, because their passion might change and it might not. And probably more than what you might realize, there's a job out there for everybody, I think. Like, especially now, there's jobs that are not invented currently that are going to be invented down the line because of technology. And so it's important to not diminish anyone's dreams and hopes and ideas and feelings, and let them explore that feeling and explore that idea instead. That is a beautiful way to close out this episode. So thank you. And we can all do a little bit better trying to support our friends and give them that support, right? So that's maybe our take-home message for this one. So thank you so much. That was all the time we had for today. Thank you again, Joe, for coming on the show. Thank you again. Thanks for having me. Of course. And thank you guys for listening. This has been your host, Allyson Sheneman, and my guest, Joe Rizzi, on Curiosities of the Cosmos.